If you're a Warlock who's tired of using Starfire Protocol, wants to try something new, and maybe become a human Napalm Strike, then this is the video for you. What's up guys, Surf and Twerk here, back with another Destiny 2 video. This build is going to be for Warlocks who want to run the Solar subclass but want to try something new. Today we're going to be putting on our Sunbracers, flying above the opponents, and dropping bombs on them. I will be going over every ability, aspect, and fragment, as well as armor mods and weapons that'll work best with this build, and then after that I'll tell you how it works and maybe give you a little gameplay loop as well. As always, the dim link will be down in the description below, and if you enjoy the content anytime, be sure to leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you're new. Now let's dive right in. Like I mentioned before, we are going to be using the Solar subclass. Of course, the super ability we're going to be using here is going to be Well of Radiance. Whenever you're in trouble here, you can just pop Well from no matter how high up in the air, and this is where you're going to be able to get extra damage and of course extra healing. Everybody loves Well. For the abilities here, I chose to use Phoenix Dive. Phoenix Dive makes you dive on the ground and create a burst of solar light that cures nearby allies. While Heat Rises is active, you gain restoration while diving and scorch targets upon landing. So this is a nice way to get back on the ground, heal yourself, and hurt enemies all at the same time. For the movement ability here, I will be using Strafe Glide. For the melee, after a lot of consideration, I ended up using the Incinerator Snap. Basically, you're going to be able to snap your fingers and create a fan of fire that burns targets, makes them explode, and it also scorches them too. Depending on what you're going to be using this for, maybe if you're using this for a little bit harder content, or you're staying far back from enemies and you want to use Celestial Fire instead, that's absolutely fine. Whichever one you like. Of course, for the grenade, we're going to be using the Solar Grenade, which is a grenade that fires a flare of solar light that continuously damages and scorches targets trapped inside. For the aspects here, we will be going with Heat Rises. You can fire weapons, melee, and throw grenades while gliding. Of course, you're going to consume your grenade, then Heat Rises activates, and then Final Blows while airborne increase the duration of Heat Rises and grant melee energy. So this is pretty huge for this build. Of course, like I said, we're going to be a human Napalm Strike. We're basically going to be flying over enemies and dropping fire everywhere. As for the second aspect, we have Touch of Flames, which basically makes our grenades have enhanced functionality. For the Solar Grenade, it increases linger duration and periodically emits blobs of lava around its perimeter. So when you throw a grenade, there's going to be little lava balls falling everywhere, and whenever we're going to be using Sunbracers, you're creating 5 of these giant solar grenades that stay a long time. So we're going to be engulfing everything in flames. For the fragments here, the first one I chose to use was Ember of Resolve. Your solar grenade final blows cure you. This is basically just an easy way to heal while you're up in the air with Heat Rises. Then we have Ember of Singeing. Your class ability recharges faster when you scorch targets. This again, grenades scorching targets, meaning you're going to be able to get your Phoenix Dive faster. Ember of Searing, which defeating scorched targets grant melee energy and creates a fire sprite, plus 10 recovery as well. Main thing here is defeating scorched targets, getting your melee back. Of course, you need melee to proc Sunbracers, so there you go. And then lastly, of course, we have Ember of Ashes. You play more scorch stacks to targets. This is pretty much just going to be able to kill your enemies faster. Of course, now I'm going to be going over the stats that I recommend. First stat, always going to recommend top tier Resilience because of the 30% damage reduction. But not only that, I will also recommend Strength second because getting your melee back is incredibly important. As long as you have a melee and you can get a kill with your powered melee, then you're going to be able to use unlimited grenades. So discipline is not really a big important thing here. I do have discipline on just in case I don't get a final blow with my grenades for whatever reason. It'll help me eventually get my melee back. Now this is the part where I go on to artifact mods. Of course, as always, artifact mods are not needed. They're just extra bonuses per season. This build does not use anything super special, so if you're viewing this at a later time, continue to use this build. There's no need to get rid of it just because 3 artifact mods changed. But with that being said, the first one I chose to use was Shatter Orbs. The first time you break a combatant's shield, you create an orb of power if you break the shield with a matching damage type. Next, probably I guess the most important one out of here, is Solar Surge. Collecting a fire sprite gives you an armor charge. Then lastly, we have Prismatic Transfer. When you cast a super, each member of your fire team with a subclass damage type different than yours gains a bonus to weapon damage. So this is just how you can kind of buff your teammates. Next up, we're going to move on to the armor pieces and the mods that I chose to use. Of course, starting with the head, I chose to use Ashes to Assets, gain bonus super energy on grenade kills. Then I chose to use a Solar Siphon and a Harmonic Siphon. I've heard that both of these will stack together and they activate a little bit differently. I'm not quite sure how that works, but I have noticed that I do spawn a hell of a lot more orbs. Every time I get Rapid Solar Weapon Final Blows, it creates an Orb of Power. Having these two different mods on, I guess, will help me in some sort of way. Moving on to the arms here, this is where we're using our exotic slot. Of course, we are wearing Sunbracers today. It has a special armor perk called Helium Spirals. It increases the duration of solar grenades, and solar grenade melee kills grant unlimited solar energy for a brief time. So if you get a powered melee kill with your Sunbracers on, you're going to be able to throw out 5 grenades back to back to back to back to back, be able to light everything on fire and deal massive damage not only to small enemies, but to champions and bosses as well. The mods I chose to use here were going to be Firepower. Your grenade final blows create orbs of power. Bolstering Detonation, which grants class ability energy when you cause damage with a grenade. And then Momentum Transfer, which causing damage with a grenade reduces your melee. So we got a nice little rotation between abilities here. Most important thing that your grenade and your Phoenix Dive is going to do for you is to make sure you have your powered melee. Your powered melee is vital for this build. Next up, we have our chest piece here. I kind of went back and forth depending on what I kind of wanted to do here, but I really just went with classic resist mods, Arc, Solar, and Void. I was kind of thinking, oh, maybe I wanted to do Charged Up, depending on what I wanted to do with the arm mods, but I kept it simple. No need to really change things up. Next up with the leg armor, I chose to use Invigoration, which reduces melee cooldown each time you pick up an Orb of Power, which we will be spawning a lot of. Then we have Solar Weapon Surge, which your solar weapon gains a small bonus damage while you have any armor charge. And armor charge now decays over time. However, we are going to be getting so many orbs. We're going to have Solar Weapon Surge all the time. And I put this on because it might help us out here if we do end up running out of the melee. But with how I played, I feel like I didn't really run out of melee too often. And if I did, I got a couple SMG kills and then went back to throwing grenades. Last armor mod is going to be here, Stacks on Stacks, which just basically means picking up an Orb of Power grants you 1 additional stack of armor charge. Again, helping us out here for our Solar Weapon Surge. Lastly, onto the bond here, I got Outreach, which reduces melee cooldown when using your class ability. Reaper, which using your class ability, your next weapon final blow spawns an Orb of Power. So we're automatically going to get Orbs of Power off of the Reaper mod after we use a Phoenix Dive. And then lastly, we have Time Dilation, which your decaying armor charge has a longer duration. Just gives us our buff longer. Now I'm going to give you some weapon recommendations for this build. I will say it's not really super important for a primary or heavy weapon. The 3 weapons that I will be recommending here are going to be in the energy slot, all solar. Of course, the first is going to be the Callus Mini tool. If you can get Incandescent on one, it's absolutely amazing to use, and it's unlimited ammo. That's probably why I ended up using this the most. After that, we got 2 really good trace rifles here. We have Acacia's Dejection, which is from the new Root of Nightmares raid. I have a crafted one myself with Reconstruction Incandescent, which is also incredibly good. And then after that, maybe if you want to use something with your exotic slot, Prometheus Lens is another great option. This one has basically built-in incandescent as well, but it's going to be a little bit better because you have that field of heat energy that can grow while you're firing the weapon. And honestly, run Galahorn. I think Galahorn would be a really fun option as well. This build is incredibly easy to use. It's very simple. You just have to make sure you're doing things in the correct order to make sure you're getting your best benefit from this. How I'd recommend playing with this build is first, just consume the grenade, activate Heat Rises. It'll last about 15 seconds. After that, you're going to want to get a kill with your powered melee. That way you can activate Sunbracers. And while it's active, you can throw 5 grenades in a 5-second window. And then you can pretty much juggle it that way. Of course, always activate Phoenix Dive if you need to activate Restoration or Cure. And then you can always extend the restoration timer with your solar weapon kills or ability kills. Not only that, but if you're airborne with Heat Rises and you're getting kills with your solar weapons or solar abilities, you're also going to be able to just keep that going over and over again. So really with this build, you will be able to stay in the air as long as possible while throwing down unlimited grenades. As long as you're smart about who you're going to kill next with your melee, you're going to be all fine. This is an incredibly fun build, honestly, and it's just really fun to use something a little different. I know this build is still grenade-based and it's solar, but again, with Heat Rises and how solar grenades work with Sunbracers, I think this build is different enough to be really fun. If you enjoy this video at any time, be sure to leave a like, and if you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe. We have tons of Destiny content here. I got tons more planned as well, including one of my next videos, which will be a Titan build based on Master Chief. With that being said, thanks for watching. Thank you guys so much for the support. Go clean your bathroom. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.